The Power of God, Part 1. In a small village named Harmony, people lived simple and peaceful lives. The village was surrounded by green fields, tall mountains, and a clear blue sky. The villagers were kind and helped each other. They believed in the power of God and always prayed for His guidance and blessings. Among the villagers, there was a young boy named David. David was curious and loved to learn new things. He often asked questions about the world, the stars, and especially about God. His parents, Sarah and Jacob, taught him to pray and have faith. They told him stories from the holy book about God's miracles and His power to protect and heal. One day, a terrible storm hit the village. The sky turned dark, and the wind howled like a wild beast. The rain poured down, and the river near the village started to rise. The villagers were scared. They had never seen such a storm before. The water from the river began to flood the fields and homes. David and his family were also worried. Their house was near the river, and the water was getting closer. Sarah and Jacob held David close and prayed to God for safety. They believed that God would hear their prayers and protect them. As the storm continued, something amazing happened. An old man, who was a stranger to the village, appeared. He had a long white beard and wore simple clothes. He seemed calm and peaceful despite the chaos around him. The villagers gathered around him, seeking help and guidance. The old man spoke in a gentle voice. "Do not be afraid. Have faith in God's power. He will protect you and your village." He raised his hands and prayed. The villagers joined him, their hearts filled with hope and faith. Slowly, the storm began to calm. The wind stopped howling, and the rain slowed down. The water from the river stopped rising and started to go down. The villagers were amazed. They could feel the power of God through the old man's prayer. They thanked God for saving them from the terrible storm. The old man stayed in the village for a few days. He taught the villagers more about faith and the power of prayer. David was especially interested in the old man's stories and lessons. He spent a lot of time with him, learning about God's love and miracles. One evening, as the sun was setting, the old man told David a special story. Long ago, there was a boy just like you, curious and full of questions. He wanted to understand God's power and His ways. So, he went on a journey to find the truth. Along the way, he faced many challenges, but he always prayed and had faith. In the end, he discovered that God's power is not just in miracles, but in the love and kindness we show to each other. David listened carefully. He realized that the power of God was not just in big miracles, but also in the small acts of kindness and love. He promised himself that he would always help others and have faith in God. The next day, the old man told the villagers that it was time for him to leave. They were sad to see him go, but they were also grateful for his help and teachings. David asked the old man, "Will I ever see you again?" The old man smiled and said, "Remember, God is always with you. Whenever you help others and show kindness, you will feel His power and presence." With that, the old man blessed the villagers and left. The villagers rebuilt their homes and fields. They worked together and helped each other, just as the old man had taught them. David continued to learn and grow, always remembering the lessons about the power of God. The village of Harmony became even more peaceful and prosperous. The villagers never forgot the storm or the old man's visit. They knew that with faith and kindness, they could overcome any challenge. And so, the story of the power of God spread from the village of Harmony to many other places, inspiring people to believe in faith, love, and kindness. Stay tuned for part 2, where David goes on an adventure and discovers even more about the power of God. The Power of God, Part 2. Years passed, and David grew into a wise and kind young man. He remembered the lessons from the old man and always tried to help others. One day, David decided to go on a journey to learn more about the world and the power of God. He wanted to see how God's love and kindness could change lives in different places. David packed his bag with some food, a water bottle, and the holy book his parents had given him. He said goodbye to his family and friends in the village of Harmony and started his journey. He walked through forests, crossed rivers, and climbed mountains. Everywhere he went, he looked for people who needed help and shared his knowledge about God's power. One evening, David reached a town called Serenity. The town was beautiful, with gardens full of flowers and streets filled with people. But David noticed that many people looked sad and worried. He decided to stay in the town for a few days to understand what was troubling the people. David found a small inn and rented a room. The innkeeper, Mr. Brown, was a kind old man. He welcomed David and offered him a warm meal. As they talked, Mr. Brown shared the town's troubles. "We have had a long drought," he said. "The river has dried up, and our crops are dying. People are losing hope." David listened carefully and felt a strong desire to help. He remembered the old man's words about faith and kindness. That night, David prayed to God for guidance. He asked God to show him a way to help the people of Serenity. The next morning, David visited the town square. He saw children playing, but their laughter was weak, and their faces were thin. He saw farmers with tired faces, trying to save their withering crops. David decided to talk to the town's leader, Mayor Thompson, to see how he could help. Mayor Thompson was a busy man, but he welcomed David into his office. David explained who he was and why he was traveling. He told the mayor about the old man's visit to Harmony and how faith and kindness had saved his village. The mayor listened with interest and said, "If you can help us, we will be grateful, but many people here have lost faith." David knew he had a difficult task ahead. He started by gathering the town's people in the square. He shared the story of the storm in harmony and how an old man's faith and prayer had saved them. He encouraged the people of Serenity to have faith in God and to show kindness to each other. Some people were inspired by David's words and started to believe again. They joined him in praying for rain and helping each other. David also visited the farms and helped the farmers with their work. He showed them ways to conserve water and protect their crops from the heat. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, the people of Serenity began to see small changes. The plants in the gardens started to look greener, and the air felt cooler. One day, dark clouds gathered in the sky. The townspeople watched with hope as the clouds grew thicker and darker. Finally, the rain came. It started with a few drops and then turned into a heavy downpour. The people of Serenity cheered and danced in the rain. They knew that their prayers had been answered. The river began to fill up, and the crops started to revive. The town was full of life and hope once again. Mayor Thompson thanked David for his help. "You have shown us the power of faith and kindness," he said. "We will never forget your visit." David smiled and said, "Remember, the power of God is in all of us." When we believe and help each other, we can overcome any challenge. David continued his journey, visiting many other towns and villages. Everywhere he went, he shared the message of faith, love, and kindness. He saw how the power of God could bring light to the darkest places and hope to the most troubled hearts. One day, David found himself in a vast desert. He was tired and thirsty, but he kept walking, trusting in God's guidance. As he walked, he saw a small oasis with a few palm trees and a clear pool of water. He thanked God for leading him there and rested under the shade of the trees. While resting, David met a group of travelers who were also seeking refuge in the oasis. They were from a distant land and were on their way to a sacred mountain. The travelers told David about their journey and the challenges they had faced. They were weary and unsure if they could reach their destination. David felt a strong connection with the travelers. He shared his own journey and the stories of how faith and kindness had helped him and others. He encouraged the travelers to believe in the power of God and to support each other. The travelers felt inspired by David's words and decided to continue their journey together. The journey to the sacred mountain was long and difficult. The travelers faced many obstacles, including sandstorms and steep cliffs. But they remembered David's words and prayed for strength and guidance. They helped each other and shared their resources. One evening, as they camped near the base of the mountain, the travelers saw a bright light in the sky. It was a sign from God, guiding them to the top. They felt renewed hope and energy. With David leading the way, they began their ascent. The climb was challenging, but the travelers supported each other. They held hands and pulled each other up when the path was steep. Finally, They reached the top of the sacred mountain. At the summit, they found a beautiful temple dedicated to God. Inside the temple, there was a large statue of an angel with open arms, symbolizing God's love and protection. The travelers knelt and prayed, thanking God for guiding them and for the strength to complete their journey. David felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. He knew that the power of God was not just in miracles, but in the faith, love, and kindness that people showed to each other. He realized that his journey had taught him as much as it had helped others. The travelers invited David to stay with them in their land, but he decided to continue his journey. He wanted to share the message of God's power with as many people as possible. The travelers thanked him and promised to keep his teachings alive. David left the sacred mountain with a heart full of gratitude. He knew that God's power was always with him, guiding him and giving him strength. He walked with a new purpose, ready to face any challenge and to help anyone in need. As David continued his journey, he remembered the old man's words, "God is always with you. Whenever you help others and show kindness, you will feel His power and presence." He knew that these words were true and that the power of God was in every act of love and kindness. And so, the story of David and his journey spread far and wide, inspiring people to believe in the power of God and to live with faith, love, and kindness. The message reached many hearts, bringing hope and light to the world. The end.